кажется, что ваш мир в безопасности. Это иллюзия. Наслаждайтесь последними мгновениями спокойной жизни.
In the 60s, in the 50s actually, the future of human race was really good. It was happy. And after that, it's become something like dark. So aliens were trying to conquer us, to destroy us. And why does it happen? And what is the future in the cinema today?
It's interesting. I think that, first of all, if you look at a lot of movies that were made in the 50s, and you look at sort of the visual effects of the movies, you see that people were a little bit more innocent then, that people were accepting of things that were very simplistic and didn't quite feel real. I think that the themes and stories of movies have worked similarly, that people understand where we are more, and that while visually they need to see things that are more realistic to believe it, that stories also need to be a little bit more realistic to believe it, unless it's a complete fantasy. But Star Trek was always about us, about projecting where we would be in the future. So I think that the idea of certainly this film was not to be preachy and talky and to try and teach a lesson or make a comment necessarily. We were happy to tell a story that felt connected to a world that we live in. Roddenberry 50 years ago created a world that was, some would say, almost sort of Pollyannish in terms of its future, almost naive in its sort of, innocence and lack of conflict. While I don't think that's where we're going, I also am very optimistic and romantic about where I think we could go. And the greatest lesson, I would say, is the idea that humanity can work together and get over our differences to sort of come together as people, both in exploration and defending ourselves. And that to me was sort of a wonderful thing to see.
Я видел, как ты убивал ни в чем не повинных людей. Я заставлю тебя ответить за то, что ты сделал.
Ты даже не представляешь, что сделал ты. Я переступлю через ваши трупы.
I have noticed in almost all of your movies, the main villain, you always feel sympathy for him, because he's not bad actually. Like Ricardo Montalban said, for example, once, that a villain does villainous things, but he thinks that he acts for the right reason. And the John Harrison did that,
Yes.
Nero did that. What is a true villain? What is a true evil, maybe, even?
Well, I think that if someone is choleric, someone who's like easily brought to anger, that's someone who maybe is harder to relate to if you don't understand why they're provoked or easily provoked. Meaning, someone like Nero, who, by the way, in the first film that we did, was this just vengeful ball of fury. He was so angry. This character, while he is definitely, an angry guy, and he's sort of like, I think he's sort of a colossus in terms of villains, he's also someone who is relatable. He's got this kind of, there are moments where you go, oh, I actually feel sympathy for this guy. That's weird. What's going on? And it's a gray area, which to me is a very interesting place to live and to have a character that isn't just about trying to kill your character. It's about why they're trying to kill, your character. So I feel like we lucked out with Benedict Cumberbatch, by the way, who I think, is extraordinary and really elevates everything he's in.
Fantastic.
Isn't he amazing?
Fantastic.
That guy's, yeah, he's so good.
Я лучше,
Чем кто?
чем все.
The idea for casting any character is always a vague idea of what you want. And then you start the process of actually making it real, looking at who's available, who's interested, who might be right. You have meetings, you have auditions, and at a certain point you make a decision not based on anything other than what gives you the chills, what feels like the right thing. I feel like the goal for all the characters, and especially the character that Benedict plays, we went into this just wanting to figure out what is the right sort of combination of people. For example, when we were casting the main characters in the movie, we knew that Kirk needed a confidant in Spock, and we needed to find someone you believed he could have a beginning of a friendship with, a trusting friendship. When we cast Zoe Saldana, we needed someone who was going to be really smart at her job, but also really tough. Like, we needed people who had all these different elements. And at the end of the day, it's always about making the right decision based on the group, because if you just look at, in a vacuum at one character, it usually doesn't end up working out. And Benedict, you know, when he auditioned, blew our minds. He was so scary and so great, you know. And to see all these people together in a movie that, you know, we got to shoot in IMAX quite a bit of it. I think the 3D is incredible. It's this big action adventure. But like you're saying, the characters, they're at the center of the whole thing. And if you don't love those characters, none of the spectacle, none of the action, none of that stuff's going to matter at all.